What's up, guys? We are back with another Marvel Legends review, taking a look at a full wave today. So we've got 7 figures and a Build-A-Figure, so that's 8 to talk about. So let's take a look, see what's in this case. So this is our bad guys wave, our villains wave. So we've got Red Skull. We've got the AIM Scientist Supreme. We've got the Hood. Arcade, Classic Dormammu. We've got the White God Doctor Doom with, of course, Thanos' skull and spine. And my most anticipated figure in this wave, Lady Deathstrike. This is an entire villains wave, an entire comic book themed wave. So it's right up my alley. Of course, they come in our standard Marvel Legends style packages. So you've got the figures there in the window. We've got a Super Villains call-out logo down there on the bottom. You've got artwork that runs down the spine on all these packages showcasing that character. And then a larger shot of that artwork on the back with a little bit of a write-up. And then you've got our lineup as well as that Zemnu Build-A-Figure. So let's do it. Let's pull them out and take a look. So we're going to start with the Hood. And he is unfortunately my least favorite figure in this wave, and it's one where like he's at the bottom and then there's a good bit of a gap there and then there's the rest of the wave, because I really think that the majority of this wave is pretty strong for a number of reasons. I just think that for me personally, this guy kind of weighs it down. He's not a character that I truly care about. I'm familiar with him, so it's not that I don't know who he is and that's why I don't like him. I'm familiar with Parker Robbins here. I just don't care about him. I do think that the figure is just kind of boring too. He has this cape, he has the hood. Obviously it's a big thing for him, but it gets in the way, and that's really my biggest issue with him. The cape is longer than he is tall by a slight bit, so it's one of those things where it's always resting on the floor, and it makes posing him kind of odd because, well, I mean, you really can't have his arms do much more than just stick straight out, which is fine because he, of course, has guns, but it's also kind of weird because it wants to pop it up like that, and then you have balance issues. So you've got that. I also do not care for this head sculpt in the slightest. It is kind of fitting for him, don't get me wrong, but I don't like it. So let's run through articulation real quick. We've got the kind of current jacketed dress pants, dress shoes kind of body. We've seen this a number of times. Head can look up really far, looks down really far. Articulation is not an issue on this body to begin with. You've got head tilt, you've got rotation, arms go out at the shoulders. They, of course, rotate all the way around. We've got our bicep swivel, you've got your double jointed elbows, and then we've got hinges and rotation at the wrist. He's got a crunch, he goes forward a good bit, and then he goes backwards a little bit despite the jacket, and then you've got rotation at the waist. Legs go out about that far. They kick forward more than 90 degrees, just a bit. You do get a little bit backwards, but not much. You've got your thigh cut there. Double jointed knees go back that far. And then down at those ankles, you've got rocker and you've got hinges. So, I mean, he moves fine when he doesn't have the hood on or the cloak. It's just that big traffic cone really gets in the way. I do think that the figure on its own, like this, it's okay. The body is one we've seen before. It's decent reuse. Like, I'm not upset at all about the reuse that they use for this guy. The head sculpt is fitting for him. Like, it definitely fits the expression, and a lot of what you see when he's in the thick of it is he's always screaming. So this fits, and I of course love our Marvel Legends team for dubbing this the the average Marvel Legends collector in the live when he was revealed. It's very fitting, but I really don't care for this head sculpt on a personal level. Something about it just doesn't really do it for me. And it's one of those instances that I've mentioned before. I love getting figures that have expressions, but when they do it, I'm always going to end up going back and say, I'd rather just have a neutral expression, and that's what I would prefer here. I would have preferred a neutral expression. So I guess there's no pleasing me. He does have 2 trigger finger hands because, of course, Parker is a gun user. And then we've got our cape. And I mean, it's fine. Like, the look is fine, but I still just don't like the way it fits on him. It is covered in texture, Like, it's got a weave pattern all over it. I'm sure you can see the light pick up on that. I like the tattered nature of it. I like the way the folds look. I just wish it was a little bit shorter. I wish it didn't drag on the floor, is really what it comes down to. I think I would have a little bit, you know, more appreciation for it otherwise. And then his head is pretty well cloaked in shadow when you do have that on. So it accomplishes what it needs to accomplish. Again, I just not a big fan of it. And then he does have a couple of accessories. So of course he is a magic user, but he is a gun wielder, and he comes with some pretty cool stuff. Like, I do really like his accessories. So you get pistols. We get 2 of these, just black. Nothing much to write home about there. But he has effect parts, and these are pretty cool. So you pop these in the gun, and he's got his like magic bullets. So you've got like a magic stream coming out, an energy projection with like some astral energy or something coming out as well that would otherwise be smoke. So I do really like these. You get 2 of them. So they're pink with the orange wraparound effect, and I really do like these. Whether you care about the figure or not, like me, these are cool accessories, and I really like these effect parts. So that is the Hood. He's angry. He probably has every right to be. And now we've got Lady Deathstrike, and she is, of course, going to be my most anticipated figure because she's X-Men related. And it's one that I've just really wanted for a while. I'm really excited that they tackled her in this wave. So let's see what she can do, see how she moves around. She's different. She's interesting. So head can look up just slightly. She can look down a little bit as well. You've got good tilt side to side and then full rotation. The arms go out at the shoulders. They, of course, will rotate, but you do have to watch because, you know, her outfit kind of precludes just kind of willy-nilly moving them around, but they can swivel in there. You've got your bicep swivel. We've got single-jointed elbows, but they're 90 degrees, despite the fact that she has these, you know, crazy huge sleeves. You've got that, and they will swivel, rotate down there as well. And then you've got hinges. You've got 1 vertical and then 1 lateral hinge at the wrist with some swivel, of course. The torso is 1 singular piece, but it is nicely articulated at the waist, so she can go backwards a little bit, about that far, and then she goes forward a little bit. You've got good tilt side to side and then full rotation there. Legs go out that far. They kick forward more than 90. They kick backwards a little bit as well. You've got your thigh swivel. Pinless double jointed knees. And then, of course, we've got rocker and we've got hinges down at those ankles. So she is pretty normally articulated. She's just a different body style. She's obviously a little bit more on the unique side just because of her shape and her overall design. But I think they worked her out pretty well here, and I'm really happy with the way she moves, and I'm of course happy to see, well, or not see pins on this figure. Aesthetically, though, is where I really like this one because I think they absolutely nailed it. The overall design, I mean, there's a bunch of new stuff here. Her huge baggy sleeves, they look fantastic. There's a nice bunching and wrinkles in there. All of the adamantium that's sort of laced throughout her has a nice metallic sheen, and that's sculpted as well. So it's not just paint, it's sculpted on top of there with all of that overlay just to bring out that detail a little bit more. I do really like her outfit. She has a very unique design and very unique clothing, and I think they implemented that really well. It does, of course, give her kind of an odd shape and a different body style, but again, I think it translated really well into figure form. She does, of course, have her trademark massive hands and her adamantium claws, basically, and I think they look really good. They are, of course, weird, but they look good, and they are, again, just as metallic and shiny as they should be to match the rest of that's running through her body. The legs are pretty basic, but they do have all of that sculpted detail in there, all of those lines, so they are part of the figure. They aren't just, painted on or anything. They are in there, and they do catch the light a little bit just to bring out some of that sculpt also. And at the end of the day, I mean, I think they truly knocked the head sculpt out of the park on this one. The likeness, if that's the best way to describe it, is really well done. Everything is crisp and clean. Those lips are super bright and vibrant. The eyes are really nicely done, very straight, very centered. And then the headpiece, I think, looks nice as well. If there's one thing that I wish they had done on this figure is to give us a second head sculpt. I do wish that she had one that was just more at rest rather than this one being obviously a little bit more dynamic. It's kind of a minimal thing for me. I don't truly mind, but she doesn't come with any accessories either. So this is one of those figures where you could have been maybe given one thing and it would have elevated her a lot more just to have that option, because of course now she's always kind of in motion. But at the end of the day, I do think this head sculpt does look really good and tops off an otherwise amazing action figure. Now this guy, the Scientist Supreme, I wasn't really sure if I was going to care about him or not. This isn't exactly my thing when it comes to Legends, but I do need someone to go with my AIM guys. I do need someone that could be put next to MODOK. So this guy was definitely one that I was interested in checking out, and he's actually pretty cool. There is some nice stuff going on here. Of course, this is reuse in some respects. We've got parts from most recently the Civil Warrior figure, if you got that guy. So let's see what he can do. We've got a head that can look up really well, despite this huge bucket that he has. He looks up really well. He also looks down really nicely. It's kind of weird, but at the same time, it works. You've got some tilt side to side and full rotation, of course. Arms go out at the shoulders. They rotate, but you've got shoulder pads, so watch out for those. You've got your bicep swivel. We've got double jointed elbows, and then you've got hinges and rotation at the wrists. He's got a diaphragm cut here, so he will swivel all the way around, and that is it. There's nothing else. There's no waist or anything on this guy. To twist, so you've just got this. Twist him backwards, forward, tilt side to side, all that good stuff. Legs go out about this far. They kick forward. They kick backwards. You've got your thigh twist. We've got double jointed knees. They are kind of hindered just because of the design, but it's enough. And then we've got rotation at the ankle. You've got a little bit of rocker, and then you've got hinges as well. There's that ball down there on these legs. So he gets an actual rotate point of articulation in addition to the normal rocker and hinge. So he moves pretty well. But I really like his design, is really what it comes down to. And honestly, it's just an armored scientist guy, and that's doing it for me on its own level. But I really, really like the color scheme. I like this yellowy gold, but I like the blue accents. And of course, the little bit of like the black undersuit that peeks through. But I really like the bucket on the head. That's really my main takeaway from this character, from this figure, is I like this goofy bucket. He looks like he has a trash can on his head. So I do like that. But the metallic, kind of swirly metallic pearlescent plastic, that some folks don't like, some folks like it. I tend to very much like it, and this guy is covered in it, so that's definitely a positive for me. He's got this big, massive belt with a huge blue belt buckle. He's got the kind of honeycomb pattern on the chest, and then more of that blue accent on the mask, on the helmet rather. And he's just a cool-looking figure. That's really what it is. He's gonna look really cool with your AIM guys. Hopefully you got some in the Army Builder packs or in the singles from Pulse, that sort of thing. So if you've got a handful of them, I've got a few somewhere. He's gonna look nice with them. He's gonna look good with MODOK behind him, or whatever you want to do with him to make your little AIM corner of your shelf. So I think this guy's pretty cool. I just like him. That's really what it comes down to. One that I wasn't really sure about, one that I don't necessarily have much attachment to, but one that I like nonetheless. And then he has one accessory here. He's got his little AIM tablet. So this is just a translucent piece of blue plastic with some charts and some graphs all over it. It's all sculpted on there, on this side rather. And then you've got a little black handle, so he can hold it and he can look important doing whatever evil deeds he does. So he doesn't really have much, but yeah, I mean, it fits. It works really well. It plays up the idea that he's in charge and he can have the grunts doing whatever they're doing while he is, I don't know, browsing the web or whatever he's supposed to be doing. So he doesn't come with a lot of stuff. It's kind of a cool accessory. You could always throw a gun in his hand if you really need to. But the figure on his own, I'm having a lot of fun with. I think it's a pretty solid one. Arcade is another figure that I wasn't really clamoring for, but I am no less happy that we got him. He's another classic villain. And he definitely falls into my array of X-Men stuff that I would just like to plain have. And we've got him. So yeah, he is a very parts reuse heavy kind of figure. It's obviously one of the suited bodies, but that's fine. It definitely fits the character, so it's what he should have. As far as articulation goes, he can look up. He can look down. You don't have much tilt, little bit. You've got your rotation. Arms, of course, go out. They rotate. We've got our bicep swivel. You, of course, have your double jointed elbows, so really solid range there. And then you've got hinges and rotation at those wrists. The torso is, of course, going to be limited because He's got a rubbery jacket overlay. You've got your rotation at the waist. Legs go out about that far. They kick forward. They kick backwards slightly. Thigh twist. You've got your double jointed knees. And then we've got rocker, and you've got hinges down at those ankles. The hinge forward is pretty much non-existent, but he does have a little bit backward. And I mean, that's pretty much all he needs. I'm not sure that this is a figure that anybody truly needs to have in any kind of dynamic pose. I'm certainly not going to. So if he's just standing on the shelf, he's going to accomplish that just fine. He does have this very stark white suit, so there's really not a lot to write home about on this particular figure. He is what he is. He's a guy in a white suit. He's got a really goofy, obnoxiously large bow tie. He's got a green shirt. And then, of course, he has the really ridiculous and goofy platform shoes, which very much fit him. For me, it's really about the head sculpt and the face. And I think they did a pretty good job here. The hair looks good. The flow of it's really nicely done. The color works nicely. Of course, he should have that shock of red hair, and he definitely does. And then his overall expression is one of, kind of like a smarmy idiot, basically. And I think that works pretty nicely here. It's just, he is a little bit more on the basic side, but at the same time, that's the character. He's a guy in a suit with a goofy grin on his face and a stupid bow tie, but it works nicely here. And then he does have a couple of accessories. So you've got his cane, which does look really good. So you've got the crystal at the end there. It's kind of a cloudy blue. Holds it just fine in his right hand because it is a gripping hand. His left is like kind of an open, relaxed palm. And then he does have an extra head sculpt that's a little slightly more crazed, or maybe a little bit more on the sinister side. And then, of course, his hair is down and a little bit more disheveled and longer. This is probably not the one I'm going to use, but I do like it. It's definitely going to fit in more specific scenarios rather than him having, his more clean-cut look, which is probably going to be how I display him on the shelf. But I do like the inclusion of that second head no matter what. So he's, again, pretty basic. That's not a negative with this figure at all. He should be in the suit. They got him down pretty good. Colors are nice and vibrant and bright. I mean, he's super, super clean. And he moves pretty well, too. He doesn't really need to be dynamic, and he's going to look really good on the shelf just standing there with that goofy grin. Now, I'd wager this guy is probably going to be the most anticipated figure for a lot of folks out there. He is arguably the heaviest hitter in this wave, and for good reason. This is a classic Red Skull. It's kind of been missing, something that a lot of folks have definitely wanted. And this figure, while he's not the one I was most anticipated for, he's definitely, in the top 3, because there are a handful of figures in here that I've really, really been looking forward to. And of course, Red Skull has to be up there. This guy also brings pinless to the wave again, so we've got a fully pinless figure here. And honestly, this guy looks pretty fantastic, not to mention the fact that he comes with a ton of accessories compared to a lot of other figures in this wave, in terms of some that don't have any accessories. So let's see what he can do, see how he moves around. You've got a head that can look up. The neck is articulated as well, so it moves in and out. Head looks down. You've got really good tilt. And then you've got full rotation, of course. Arms out at the shoulder. Rotate, bicep swivel. We've got our double jointed pinless elbows. So again, love that. It's just aesthetically pleasing. And then we've got hinges and rotation at the wrist. He's got a crunch, so he goes backwards. One, goes forward. And then you've got your waist twist. Legs out, almost a full splits, pretty good. And then you've got kick forward, kick backwards. We've got thigh twist, pinless double jointed knees. We've got a boot cut down there. We've got rocker, and we've got really solid hinges. So, this guy's fantastic. Outside of the fact that he doesn't have like butterfly joints, he's really, really well articulated. And I say that knowing that he probably doesn't need butterflies anyway. It's just a thing that isn't there. Otherwise, though, I'm really happy with the way Red Skull moves. Aesthetically, though, is where I'm really the most excited about this figure because, look at him. He is really classic. He is in that classic green jumpsuit. There's not a lot to this figure, honestly. It's basically just what you see is what you get. But that's not a bad thing. That's not a negative by any means. It's just a classic look, and I really like this. We will see this again in this wave, also since Dormammu is on the same kind of body, which is pretty cool. They were able to utilize this body and kind of hide it with Dormammu with some of the other adornments that he gets. But the colors on this guy look fantastic. I mean, that dark green with the lime green for those gloves. You've got the brown for the boots. Wrinkles are really well done. All the bunching around the armpits and on the arms and down by the boots are really good. It just gives it a little bit more life. It makes it look a little bit worn. And then we've got the like the black sash. You've of course got the Hydra logo on his arm with the armband. Tampoed pretty well. No issues to speak of on that. But I mean, let's be honest, it's Red Skull. So the big thing is going to be the skull. And he does have two heads with this particular release. You've got one where he is smiling, and that's of course this one right here. I do have some like schmutz or something on the chin there. Pretty sure I can get that off, but I left it because, you know, that's a review. And I really like this. The kind of, it's not like crimson red, it's like a really bright red actually, and it contrasts to the green of the suit really well. And then of course, you know, you've got those eyes in there, which just look super sinister, and that nasty, gnarly smile. He looks incredibly evil, and that's exactly what he should look like. I think they really knocked it out of the park when it comes to this head sculpt. Very, very happy with that overall. And then, like I said, he does come with a lot of accessories. So to start with, we get 4 extra hands. So he has fists on him right now, but you get a set of really wide gripping hands. And then we get a set of trigger finger hands as well. These are vertically hinged also, which of course is always a plus. I do like that. I love seeing more of that. We get an extra head sculpt, so this is like more of a classic head sculpt with him just being, you know, scowling and angry and evil. Not as much teeth showing. This is probably the more classic of the two if we're going to really argue it, but I'm really happy with this one. I think it looks fantastic. He looks super, super evil here, just in a different way. So I'm really happy with that. We do get a gun for his trigger finger hand. So you get this, you know, kind of submachine gun with the Hydra logo on it. It's just black with the logo tampoed on it, but it's going to work really well with this particular figure. So I'm happy with that. I mean, we're already up to a lot by Marvel Legends standards, and then of course this Wave's standards. And then we also get a cosmic cube for those really big open hands. So you get this tiny little semi-transparent cube, and I am so happy that we got this. This is definitely going to be my accessory of choice, so you can pop it in one of those hands and he's going to hold it and look menacing and incredibly evil on your shelf with this all-powerful weapon. So yeah, this guy is definitely going to be one of the heavy hitters of the wave for sure. I mean, Lady Deathstrike was the one that I was most anticipated for in this wave, but there's no doubt in my mind that a lot of folks are going to get this figure and say, yes, he is the best one in the wave. He moves really well, he looks fantastic, and he comes with a ton of accessories. And then we've got Dormammu, so another very classic version of a very big villain. We've had a Dormammu in Legends within recent history. You know, we had that Build-A-Figure however many years ago that was, and it's a very different version. But this is a very classic Dormammu, smaller, but just in that kind of goofy look almost. I mean, he doesn't necessarily look super evil, but at the same time, he sort of does, and I really like this look. And like I said when I talked about Red Skull, this is another instance of this body. They share a lot of parts. Pretty much the entire figure is the same thing, save for the gauntlets and the boots, and he has an extra belt overlay, and then of course he has an armor piece, but the chest, the arms, the legs, the crotch, the whole thing, it's all the same figure. So in terms of articulation, those two figures are very, very similar. But of course, he still has a few little extra things going on. So the head is going to be where he's probably the most locked down in comparison to Red Skull, just because there's a lot more going on here. So the head really doesn't look too far up or far down, really side to side, but it does rotate. You do have to watch out for the kind of I don't know what you want to call the thing that sits over his face, the black faceplate. It's a separate piece that actually pegs into the chin, basically, underside the throat. It's the throat. The throat is under your chin. It pegs in there. So you mightn't dislodge it while you're moving him around. Just, you know, word to the wise on that one. The arms go out at the shoulders. They will, of course, rotate, but you've got to watch the armor. But he goes, I mean, still further than you're going to need. It's not really a big deal. We've got bicep swivel, we've got double jointed pinless elbows there, you've got hinges and rotation at those wrists, we've got our ab crunch that goes backwards and forwards, and then we've got our waist twist. Legs go out really far, not full splits, but really far. They kick forward, they kick backwards, a surprising bit for this body. You've got your thigh cut, pinless double jointed knees. We've got boot cut down here, shin swivel, and then you've got rocker, and you've got hinges down at those ankles. So he is very, very similar to Red Skull. Don't get me wrong, they are built on the same frame. He just has more stuff, more adornments on the figure, really, because of course he does have a little bit extra when it comes to his gauntlets, to his boots, and then he does have this piece of armor. So he is a little bit more aesthetically pleasing in some ways. This is still a very goofy looking figure, and I say that not in a negative way, it just sort of is what it is. He's kind of goofy looking. I mean, he's got this big gaudy piece of armor that sits on top of him, and I think it looks really nice in contrast to the purple suit. So you've got purple suit with that super bright yellow belt, but then you've got this sort of muted red color for his armor. So it's just a little bit of a clashing color scheme. Not to mention the fact that this armor piece, the shield that he has on him, basically the chest armor, is super, super glossy and bright in comparison. But I do like it. The contrasting finishes, I think, work here. The belt piece is a separate piece. It covers up what would be sort of like it's that sculpted piece that's on Red Skull's waist. It covers that. So you've got that little bit of extra here. You've got the sculpted gauntlets, and then you've got the spiked boot covers that he has down here, which of course just make him stand out a little bit more. I really like this figure. That's pretty much what it comes down to, though. He's a very classic version. He's an older style, but he's really goofy. It's not a negative for me to say that. He is just a goofy looking figure, but I really, really like it, and I'm happy to have this version. I was pretty happy with that Build-A-Figure that we had years back. It's a very specific version of Dormammu, and this is a very specific version, and as such, I like them for different reasons. This guy is hitting those nostalgia buttons for me, though, and especially, kind of evokes a certain era of Marvel Comics, so that's kind of fun. He does, of course, have a really tremendous head sculpt, though, and that's probably what ties it all together for me. The real negative for this is, and it's not even a big deal, it's just sort of a thing, is that black piece is a separate piece, so unless you glue it down, it does have the potential to pop out. Not a big deal, your mileage may vary on that. I've knocked it out more times than I would want, but it's easy to put back in. Otherwise, though, the head is a ton of translucent plastic with that creepy, creepy face painted over top of it, and of course you have a shock of fire for hair. And again, it evokes that very classic look and feel, and I'm really happy with it. I think he looks pretty fantastic. He does come with not as many accessories as the Red Skull, but he comes with a lot, especially for this wave. So we've got trigger finger hands on him here right now with vertical hinges for, if you want to throw some guns in his hands. Give him the Hood's guns with some magic effects if you want. We've got a set of fists here as well. So you've got fists. And then we've also got a set of wider gripping hands. These are, of course, the hands that you would use with Red Skull for the Cosmic Cube. So if you want to use the Cosmic Cube with Dormammu, you definitely can. And then he's also got some sort of mystical energy / fire effects here. We've seen these a number of times. So you've got one of each. Put him on his wrist or whatever you want to do. And you've got some magic. If you don't already have enough Marvel Legends magic effects, now you have a couple more. And then last but certainly not least, we have our new and very different Doctor Doom figure. So this, of course, is a very specific version of Doom, like this entire wave is. It's a very specific version of a lot of different characters. And this guy is, of course, a very unique version of Doctor Doom. We've, of course, got him in his white outfit, where he is souped up and he is not going to take anybody's guff, especially the Mad Titans, and of course we'll get to why here in a second. But I'm really, really excited about this figure just because I like this look. That's really all it comes down to. I like this look for Doom. He looks cool in white. End of story. So let's see what he can do, see how he moves around. He's pretty similar to the other recent Dooms we've had, but he's not exactly the same, but he is basically the same. So we've got a head that can slightly look up, not too much. He can look down really good. So this is another instance of having an independently articulated neck and head. The neck is actually a massive peg, basically. So it fits into the cavity in the neck, or in the shoulders rather, pretty good. You've got some good tilt there. So the hood is attached to the head, so it's going to get in the way a little bit, which is part of his hindrance, but it's surprisingly not as bad as it would seem. And then you've got full rotation there, We've got arms that go out at the shoulders. They, of course, rotate all the way around, but you do obviously have a cape here to get in the way. It works well enough. I mean, it's not going to pose really any issues. No pun intended. We've got our bicep swivel. You've got double jointed elbows. We've got hinges and rotation at the wrist. His torso is a single piece, so he goes backwards slightly, forwards a little bit, about that far. Pretty good. You've got tilt side to side slightly, and then you've got rotation down there at the waist. The legs go out. He does have cuts in the skirt piece to the tunic, if you want to call it, whatever you want to call it, to kick the legs outward. His legs will go forward all the way. We're going to button his holster back again. His legs go forward all the way. They go backwards just a tad. You do have a thigh cut up in there. We've got double jointed knees, but the cape is, of course, going to, act kind of wonky on you. And then you've got rocker, and you've got hinges down at those ankles. As far as your foot, there is actually rotation down there as well, because the hinge itself is a ball. So you do have a little bit of added movement, but not a great deal. He does, though, look pretty good in white again. So he's a lot of silver, he's a lot of white. The one big thing that's going to hold this figure back, and you know what I'm going to say already, is the cape. It is what it is. So it's essentially a shell that sits over top of him. It's not as bad as the hood by any means, because of course it's not connected to the hood. So I do like that. It is kind of an odd design though. So you've got like this let's just pull the head out. So you've got this very big void right there basically. So it's kind of interesting. It's a little bit different. And pop that head back in. And then you've got this big kind of just open spot on his chest there. So I will probably go the route of using a soft goods cape on this guy at some point. Time will tell on that, but I think he looks pretty good as is, at least in sort of like a vanilla pose. I think he looks pretty good. There is just a lot of silvers, a lot of that pearlescent shiny plastic, which I do like, but it's a very clean figure, if that makes any sense. Like, he's a very clean figure. There's really nothing on him that kind of detracts from his aesthetics for me. He's very pure white color. It's very shining and bright and vibrant. You've got all that metallic sheen, and I just think he looks cool. It's a different look. It's a different era. It's a different version of Dr. Doom. So I'm happy to get this guy. Whereas I was really happy with the first Doom, I'm equally happy here. He does have his Luger. It's in his holster. This is how he comes in the box. So, if you're looking for it, he does have it. It is there. And yeah, it's pretty similar to the first figure, the regular Dr. Doom, but it's got its own little unique flair. It's got its own unique little taste. And of course, a big part of that comes from the accessories, or well, one major accessory. So he has these sort of style pose open palm hands on him in the box. We get a few extra hands. So you get a left fist. We get a right trigger finger for his gun, of course. And then we get this rather odd gripping hand. It's not the same hands that you would get with the Cosmic Cube for the other figures in this wave. It is for arguably the star of the show for this particular figure, because this is definitely kind of different for a Hasbro release. It's a little morbid, it's a little grotesque, and I'm very much here for it. So this is for this Doom's specific storyline. This is the skull and spine of Thanos, and I absolutely love this. I was really unsure how this was going to work, because I was just quite certain it was just going to be a regular skull with a spine on it, but it is definitely not. So it's articulated for one, the jaw moves, but this is definitely Thanos-shaped skull action right here, and I absolutely love it. I think it's fantastic. It's really cool. I mean, it's a different accessory. It's a unique accessory. And it's going to work so well. I mean, it's meant for this particular figure, but of course you can use it for whatever other applications you might need to have a Thanos skull and spine. So this is definitely a different accessory for Hasbro. I think it's a little bit more of an adult-focused accessory for sure. And I'm really happy that they included it. He looks great on his own. I'm really happy that they gave us this particular version of Doom. But this is the thing that even people who don't read comics have definitely seen the panel where Doom rips out Thanos' skull and spine. So I'm really happy that they included it. It looks fantastic. I'm happy that it has a movable jaw as well. And it just rounds out this complete package. It makes Doom a very, very complete entry in this line, despite the fact that he does not include a Build-A-Figure piece. And then we've got our Build-A-Figure, our Zemnu, the Living Hulk. Obviously there's some Wendigo in this guy. but I absolutely love this figure. It's a deep cut. I mean, he's been around more recently, but he's beyond that. He's a deep cut character. He's not an A, B, or C tier kind of character, really. He's definitely lesser known. Most folks probably don't necessarily know who he is in some respects, or where he comes from, or how old or how long he's been around. But this is a really cool figure. This is the kind of thing that I do like to see a lot of times when it comes to BAFs. I like the lesser known things. This is something that we would never get otherwise, unless it was a Build-A-Figure. You're not going to see this in a deluxe pack sitting on your Target shelf. But he's cool as a Build-A-Figure. He's a fun figure, is really what it comes down to. He's a fun figure, and I'm enjoying this guy. So he is... I mean, he's BAF-ish. You kind of know exactly what to expect here. As far as articulation goes, his head is definitely locked down. He's got this big mane, basically, so his head is about this long, because he's got a long head of hair, and he has a beard, basically, because his head is just one big fur ball. So he really just has a little tilt side to side, or rotation rather. The harder you twist him, the more chance the head's actually going to pop out of the socket. So he doesn't do much else. He can't really look up or down. Arms go out at the shoulders. They will, of course, rotate. You've got your bicep swivel in there. Single jointed elbow, and then he's got hinges and rotation at the wrist. You do have an ab crunch in here, but he has this this girdle thing. So you can get him to crunch forward a little bit and make him sort of like, you know, hunch down over top of someone, but he doesn't go too far, and he doesn't really go too far backwards either. There is a waist twist there. Your legs go out about that far. They'll kick forward about all the way. They kick backwards a good bit. You've got your thigh twist there. We've got double jointed knees. They go back about that far. And then he's got these big old feet down here too. So you can hinge forward, backwards a little bit, and there's a slight rocker in there, but not much, because he has, I mean, look at those things. They're big snowshoes, basically. So he is, I mean, he's about what you would expect to see for a Build-A-Figure of this type. You know, we have various types of BAFs, and this guy is certainly a specific kind, but he moves well enough for this. You can get him in walking poses, running poses. You can throw him up, you know, next to the Hulk, throwing a punch at him or something like that. But really, for me, it's about the look for this one. He's going to stand on the shelf looking imposing, looking weird at that, and I think he accomplishes that goal for me pretty nicely. Obviously, this is one that looks very Wendigo-ish, very Sasquatch-ish. So if you wanted to throw all three of those together, you know, you've got the ability to do that now. But I really like this guy, and I'm honestly not really sure why I like him all that much, but I've had a lot of fun playing around with this figure. That's really what it comes down to. I've had a lot of fun with this guy. I love his big alien girdle that he's got there, you know, holding him together at the midsection. He does have the little control panel in his hand here. On his hand there, so you've got this one hand with the sort of gesturing pose, so he does have a little bit of sculpt inside there, a little bit of extra paint. He does have a good bit of overspray on his body, so he is of course stark white, but he does have, it's kind of like a gray bluish color in some respects on the shoulders, on the chest, forearms, and then down on the ankles and a little bit on the feet as well. But he's just a big furry monster. Well, he's an alien, but he's he just looks like a big Sasquatch kind of thing, basically, and I really like it. It's one of those goofy BAFs that kind of comes out of left field. I didn't expect them to ever announce this. I'm really happy that they released him, and he's going to be a cool addition to the shelf. He's again, you know, off the beaten path. He's a weird looking figure. I mean, look at that head sculpt. It's wild. It's got just tons of detail in there, crammed in, all of that hair sculpted. He does have that same kind of overspray on there, that little gray blue, and you've got the metal helm that sits on top of his head, and then of course those super bright red eyes, which, I mean, are definitely the thing that I'm drawn to first on this figure. But I think they did a really good job here. He's maybe a little bit more on the basic side compared to some other Build-A-Figures and deluxe figures that we've gotten recently, but I no less enjoy this guy. He's easily towards the top of the list for me when it comes to ranking this entire wave. I'm very happy that we got this big, hairy, weird alien guy. So yeah, this is a pretty solid wave. Like, I'm really happy with just about everything we got here. I'd say, again, like, the one figure that is kind of a miss for me personally is the Hood. I just don't care for a lot of factors when it comes to that guy. I'm not a big fan of that head sculpt, and I don't like the cape. He's going to look really good as a very angry civilian, though, so he does have that redeeming quality, and I do like his guns. The rest of this wave, though, for me, is really solid. Arcade's a great X-Men villain. We've got another X-Men villain with Lady Deathstrike. We've got a classic villain in Red Skull. We've got a fantastic classic Dormammu. We've got a really solid God Doctor Doom. I mean, what more can you really ask for here when they're going to throw in a bunch of crazy, crazy villains? Even the Scientist Supreme is a lot of fun for me, and I don't have that much attachment to him. And then, of course, we top it off with a really wacky, really crazy Build-A-Figure that, honestly, I just can't get enough of. It's not the most technically amazing Build-A-Figure, but I am loving Xemnu so much. He is a lot of fun, and that's really what this wave is. It is a lot of fun. So that's going to do it for this look at the Marvel Legends Villains wave. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.